Hello, coming up in this video, Johann and I will be talking about 7 games we always wanted but never had. These could have been played at a friend's house, rented, or maybe even something from a demo disc. I'm Harvey Retro.
And I'm Johann Chipol.
And this is the Enigmatic Retro Rewind. Right then, before we get started, if you're new to the channel and you can't get enough of those retro movies and games, consider hitting that subscribe button and the bell icon so we'll always be on your radar when we're popping out new releases.
And while you're watching today, if feeling entertained, if you're having fun, don't forget to click that thumbs up. It doesn't just give us a pat on the back, it lets YouTube know that they should be showing this video to more nostalgia nerds.
So with that out of the way, let's get straight on to number 1. Exhumed on the original PlayStation, known as Power Slave in the US and known as something long and ridiculous in Japan. This is an ancient Egypt themed first-person shooter that I only ever played the demo of. Being a huge Tomb Raider fanboy, I always loved anything to do with ancient Egypt, so this seemed right up my street, but for some reason I've never owned it. Maybe I read a review that put me off, or just never had the money at the right time, who knows, but it's always passed me by.
You have been chosen from a group of the best operatives in the world to infiltrate Karnak and destroy the threatening forces. But as your helicopter nears the Karnak Valley, it is shot down. You barely escape with your life. With no possible contact to the outside world, you begin your adventure, ready to accomplish your mission, praying to return alive.
And number 2 is another staple of the original PlayStation, Medieval. This is a classic if not underrated 3D action platformer that used to be on almost every magazine demo disc when I was younger, playing at least 2 whole levels just off that. As a kid, seeing the Tim Burton art style, hearing the gothic score and all the hints of dark humor intrigued me. I especially loved our lead protagonist, Sir Daniel Fortescue, with his one eye and goofy yet lovable appearance. Plot, from what I gathered from the demos, were that Sir Dan, who claimed to have fallen in battle against the evil warlock Zarok, is resurrected back to life to finish the job, fighting hordes of monsters and skeletons. But Sir Dan is, in reality, a big coward and a bit of an idiot. Perfect hero material. The thing about the game, though, that may have put me off running out to the store to get it right away was that the gameplay was difficult. It wasn't as simple as Spyro or Crash Bandicoot. It took me a while to master the demo levels back in the day. So maybe I had an irrational fear that the game may actually be too hard to complete. I remember having trouble taking down this giant jack-o'-lantern boss, always dying at the last hurdle. It was so annoying. Looking back at it now, perhaps I should have taken the plunge and just get good. But because of that, this was one of those titles I never got my hands on. The remake is out now, so maybe I should finally own it and take down the Pumpkin King. I'm coming for you.
Moving on to number 3, Chase HQ 2 on the Amiga, also known as Special Criminal Investigation on the Sega Master System and other ports. I just had to have a couple of Amiga games on this list. Out of all the systems I played at friends' houses back in the day, the Amiga was definitely the one I was the most envious of. This was the closest thing to the arcade at home back then. Who remembers playing an Amiga version of a game like this one and picking up the version of it on your own system and expecting it to look and play exactly the same, but it never ever did. So Chase HQ 2 was so impressive to me because it was inspired by every cop action movie with a car chase from the 80s. Basically all you're doing is chasing a baddie, avoiding obstacles like the first one, but this time you can shoot and drive. Mind blown.
Stop talking nonsense. I know nothing. It's Bob the boss. She isn't the one you guys are looking for. Bob, I know nothing.
Number 4 is Panzer Dragoon Saga for the Sega Saturn. This is one that was impossible to get the conventional way. It was mostly due to the console itself. Being one of a very small handful of people to actually own a Sega Saturn in my hometown, finding new games for it in stores was almost a nightmare to do. But this was my white whale. I owned the original Panzer Dragoon, which was a 3D on-rails arcade shooter where you were shooting lasers off the back of the dragon. It was so metal. But it was a very short game that could be finished in around 30 minutes, with only a few cutscenes building to what seems to be a far bigger world and a complex lore. So when I read in Sega Saturn magazines that there was going to be a JRPG based in this universe with a full graphical upgrade that rivaled Final Fantasy, I was so excited. But it never came. Or at least it was very hard to come by. The Sega Saturn was doing very poorly in the West, and with Sega Japan already looking towards the Dreamcast, only very few copies of the game was ever released in Europe, and very little promotion to boot. It is still incredibly rare now, with PAL copies of this game going from somewhere around £400 or more on eBay. So, what is considered by many to be one of the best Sega Saturn games of all time is still out of my hands. Unless I open a GoFundMe for this. Anyone with spare change?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, number 5, and going back to my renting Sega Mega Drive days now, and this one had some dude. Skitchin was essentially a Road Rash clone with rollerblades that came out during a time when you couldn't get me out of rollerblades. I'd skate with friends for miles around where we lived and skate around the house annoying my family. I was all about the blades, bro. This game tapped into the fantasy that most kids had that became cemented in our minds since we first saw Back to the Future. Everyone knew that grabbing onto the back of cars while skating was super dangerous, but let's face it, most of us wanted to try it. That's where skitchin comes in, the safer option. I could do this all day and never end up under a car. The game probably saved lives.
Number 6 is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater for the PlayStation 2. Yes, I know it's almost blasphemous to the Church of Kojima that I never owned possibly one of the best games in the Metal Gear saga, but I didn't. The game had everything that should make it an instant buy. The rogues gallery of both reimagined classic characters in the series, as well as some fresh new faces. The survival mechanics that put a whole new spin on the stealth gameplay, the new wartime setting, and possibly one of the best video game theme songs ever.
I give my life, not for honor, but for you.
I mean, the literal lyrics and clear James Bond references, mwah, chef's kiss. But the reason this passed me by, even though it had everything I want in a game, was timing. I never got to own this title because this was one game in a whole boom period where almost every single company was throwing a classic game out. 2005 had games like Resident Evil 4, Devil May Cry 3, Condemned, God of War, Guitar Hero, Psychonauts. With all these games getting released, Snake Eater, like Big Boss himself, was just hidden away among the video game jungle. Like many of you out there, sometimes we're just too overwhelmed by choice and had to make some tough decisions about what you want to own. Almost a decade later, I was finally able to play it in full, using a friend's copy, and I enjoyed it for all it's worth. The cutscenes are in full melodramatic cheese mode.
You're CIA.
Yeah.
The visuals are excellent, the gameplay is the best in the series, and the story is both the most cinematic and the least bloated Kojima has ever done. I know, weird. But in 2005, Snake Eater wasn't the first in the queue in a year of such great game titles. I do wonder though, if I did play it in 2005, if it would have created a time paradox.
No way. No way.
And finally, number 7, and going back to the Amiga, and this one is Hudson Hawk. You may remember the unusual crime caper musical passion project for Bruce Willis from 1991, but what you might not remember is that there was a game, and it was brilliant. I don't know why, but I was always impressed by heroes that could shimmy and monkey swing in games. I guess I hadn't seen that mechanic too often at this point in time, so it really wowed me. So much so that I even remember drawing a picture of a level similar to this one and asking a school friend, how will this character get across this gap? He replied, super jump? And I said, you see that drain pipe there? He'll grab that and shimmy across. And he was like, no way. The game was pretty chaotic with tough obstacles everywhere. You're supposed to be a cat burglar sneaking into places at night. This is the complete opposite of stealth. It's party time, look at it. I'd love to list more reasons why I love this game, but in all honesty, it's just about the shimmy thing. So that is it, that is our list, but what about you? What games have you always wanted but never had? Let me know in the comments, but before we go, let's have a look what the community said on social media. Rider18 over on Instagram. For the Sega Saturn, I always wanted Enemy Zero and D, which were both survival horror adventure games. I always wanted Kyo Flying Squadron 2, which was one of the best looking platformers for the console. But it unfortunately came down to not having enough pocket money or not being old enough to buy them. Back then you either had to wait to save up or wait for Christmas or your next birthday. LOL.
The Unofficial Controller podcast on Instagram said, a game I always wanted but never had was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Yeah, I have access to play it in many different ways, but I want the sweet launch double case with the soundtrack and the art book. No compromises. One day she will, yes, she will be mine.
It will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine.
A few from the Enigmatic Productions Discord now. If you're not a member yet, feel free to join via the link in the description. K Thunderbird says, both retro and on topic, Unholy War on PS1. Play the demo a million times, but never found the actual game.
Shell says, Final Fantasy VII. My first console was a PlayStation 2, so I played 10 and upward, but missed the classics.
Finally, Peyton says, sticking with the Final Fantasy here, so he says Final Fantasy IV on the PS1. I always wanted it, but when the game was released this side, it was too expensive. And try explaining that to a black mom why you should buy an expensive game versus groceries for the month. LOL. I have a few games I missed, either because they were just expensive or I didn't have the platform. Okay, thanks for all those lovely comments. If you'd like to have a readout on the next episode, follow Enigmatic Productions on Instagram, all one word.
Or you can join the Enigmatic Discord and get involved that way.
Right, okay then, I'll do it. We'll see you in the future, talking about the past.
See you later, guys.
Right, thanks for watching, guys. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like. If you want to see more from us, hit that subscribe. See you next time on Enigmatic Productions.